Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Dirks, and on behalf of Choice and ACRL, I'd like to welcome you to today's program, Introducing MLA Handbook Plus, the digital subscription platform, which is sponsored by the Modern Language Association. Today's discussion is one in a series of sponsored webinars from Choice and ACRL that addresses new ideas and developments of interest to the academic library community. Before we get started, I'd like to point out just a couple of features of the webinar software. For those of you joining us as attendees today, please know that you should be muted and your cameras should be disabled, at least in this webinar room. So you shouldn't have to worry about generating noise or feedback or anything like that. That should be all taken care of for you. Of course, in the main area of the screen, you should be able to follow along with our presentation materials. And we are using the Q&A feature today. So if you have questions for any of our presenters, please take a minute to drop those into that Q&A module. Our audience today is large and we're expecting really quite a few questions. So if we don't have time to get to all of those, we apologize in advance. That said, we'll try to get to as many as we can at the end of the presentation. So if you do have questions, drop them in there and we'll do our best to get to a bunch. Also, I would like to point out that there is closed captioning available for today's session. If you'd like to toggle those automated captions on or off, you can go ahead and use the little CC button on the bottom right corner of your screen. Also note that we are recording today's program and that everyone who registered should receive a follow-up email with a link to that recording. All right, and here to kick things off for us is Angela Gibson. Angela is the Director of Scholarly Communication at the MLA, and before coming to the MLA, she received a PhD from the University of Rochester and taught college courses in writing and literature. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Angela.
Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for joining us today to learn more about MLA Handbook Plus. I'm joined here by Erica Suffern, the head of book publications at the Modern Language Association, and by Christina Shea, our library sales manager. So MLA Handbook Plus is the culmination of years of feedback we received and conversations we had with librarians, teachers, and students who use the handbook every day. The site launches on Tuesday, September 14th, when we'll start offering free trials. And the site will also be available to an unlimited number of simultaneous users at subscribing institutions. It meets WCAG 2.1 accessibility standards and has a number of notable features designed to make the resource as useful as possible for members of your campus community wherever they are. And I'm going to advance a slide now. Okay. Great. A little bit of a delay, bear with me. Okay. All right. So the new 9th edition of the MLA Handbook is the cornerstone of MLA Handbook Plus, which at launch on 14th September will include the handbook powered by a robust platform hosted by Silverchair and designed to make it even easier to teach and learn MLA style. MLA Handbook Plus is the only authorized subscription-based digital resource featuring the entire MLA Handbook. Since the site is published by the MLA, you can be confident that writers are getting accurate information from a trusted source. With seamless annual updates and forthcoming additional resources, such as videos and companion titles, writers will always have access to the most current version of MLA Style on a fully accessible site. Especially after the past year and a half, we know it's essential that students and other members of your campus community have uninterrupted access to important course and reference materials like the MLA Handbook, regardless of physical proximity to their institution's libraries. MLA Handbook Plus users can access the platform from standard browsers and mobile devices. Students, instructors, and librarians will have a polished user experience, whether they're using MLA Handbook Plus on a desktop, laptop, tablet, phone, or screen reader. MLA Handbook Plus is more than just a static version of the print handbook. We've made some changes to the navigation and display of the handbook to enable different pathways through it. Right from the How to Use tab on the homepage, for example, Writers new to MLA Style will be able to use the jump links in the Learner's Tour to quickly access the most critical information to help them get started. The handbook also contains tips for specialist writers and advanced scholars. These links appear under the For Experienced Writers tab for quick reference. MLA Handbook Plus uses the same numbering sections as the print handbook, so users can easily go back and forth between MLA Handbook Plus and the print edition. However, on MLA Handbook Plus, the print handbook's 7 chapters are presented in smaller, discrete groupings better suited to online use. For example, from chapter 2 on the mechanics of prose, the print chapter on punctuation is broken up into mini chapters by punctuation mark. The table of contents and first number of each section correspond to the relevant print chapter number. This division allows for more efficient search. It also allows users to efficiently scroll through closely related sections, as this example from chapter 5 on the works cited list shows. Users can navigate MLA Handbook Plus in various ways, all fully linked on the site. From anywhere on the site, the top navigation bar allows users to return to the full book table of contents. But we've made additional innovations to the platform to ensure ease of use. Each Plus chapter features a list of contents for the chapter. It also features a book level content pane that you see on the right. This content pane expands to show sections with jump links. Users can easily navigate between consecutive Plus chapters using the previous and next links. They can also follow the links in the boxed cross-reference sections to refer to other relevant areas of the handbook. Now, these are the same cross-references that appear in the print book. The index from the print book is also fully reproduced. It features a side navigation panel that allows users to jump to alphabetic ranges. Each entry includes links that can be used as a navigation tool as well. Dividing handbook chapters into smaller groupings optimizes the search functionality on the Plus platform. We've tagged and categorized every section and added custom search filters to help students find the most relevant information. One useful aspect of this customized tagging that we're especially excited about is this. Users can search over 500 works cited list examples listed in Appendix 2 by publication format. For example, by searching a format like song and applying the filter example citations, relevant results will surface. We intend to add to these examples regularly, effectively creating a rich, always updated database of examples for writers to consult. That's an example of the results you'd get. Sorry, I didn't click ahead fast enough. All right. To make the most use of the hundreds of visuals in the handbook and help reinforce core concepts, we also added a split screen view that appears in a floating toolbar as users scroll. The split screen feature also presents figures and illustrations side by side with corresponding text. Figures can also be clicked to pop out. In both views, figures are presented in line and grouped at the end of sections. And users can see a larger version of the figure using the View Large button for optimal legibility. In addition to these interactive features that will be available at launch, we're already hard at work developing new features, content, and additions. In the future, we'll be adding titles in our popular MLA Guide series, such as the MLA Guide to Digital Literacy and the MLA Undergraduate Research in Literature. A second edition of both guides is in the works, and more guides are being prepared. And because of the digital-first nature of MLA Handbook Plus, we'll be able to make annual updates to the handbook, allowing MLA Style to change and evolve with student needs and usage conventions. We'll also be launching a series of companion videos with links to self-assessments, which will make learning and thus teaching MLA Style easier than it's ever been before. And now I'll turn it over to Erica to give you an overview of what's in 9th edition.
Thanks, Angela. Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Suffern, and I'm excited to tell you about the brand new 9th edition of the MLA Handbook. Handbook consists of 7 chapters plus 2 appendixes, and that's 400 pages that include 142 visuals and more than 500 example citations. Handbook also includes expanded in-depth guidance on how to use the MLA template of core elements, updated sample citations for a diverse range of works, a new easy-to-follow explanation of in-text citations, and updated guidelines on avoiding plagiarism. It also includes a chapter on formatting research papers, newly revised and expanded guidelines on spelling, punctuation, capitalization, and more. A new chapter containing recommendations for using inclusive language. A new chapter on using notes in MLA Style, and a new appendix with hundreds of sample works cited list entries listed by publication format, including books, databases, websites, YouTube videos, preprints, interviews, and more. Let's take a look at the handbook chapter by chapter. Our information on formatting research papers is still available on the MLA Style Center website, but by popular demand, it's also included in the 9th edition. Chapter 1 provides guidance on titles and title pages, formatting texts and margins, headings and subheadings, placement of the list of works cited, tables and illustrations, lists, and more. Chapter 2, Mechanics of Prose, covers spelling, punctuation, italics in prose, capitalization of terms, names of persons, titles of works in prose, and numbers. We explain the rules for capitalizing terms not only in English, but also in other commonly taught languages. There are also sections on names in prose, including names of persons in various languages, and new to the handbook, names of organizations and groups, and names of literary periods and cultural movements. You'll also find information on how to treat titles of works in prose, including capitalizing titles, punctuation of titles and styling of titles, titles within titles, or language terms within titles, shortened titles in prose, and translating titles in languages other than English. An expanded section on whether to use italics or quotation marks or neither for styling titles in prose includes examples of books, films, websites, podcasts, visual art, games, poems, lectures, and more. The last part of chapter 2 is on how to treat numbers, including use of numerals or words, plurals of numbers, commas in numbers, dates and times, number ranges, and styling numbers and titles of works. Chapter 3 is Principles of Inclusive Language. Let's see if I can get my slide to load. There it goes. Entirely new to the handbook, this chapter helps writers consider how to choose inclusive language with regard to race and ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, ability, age, and economic or social status. The chapter covers making references to identity relevant, discussing diverse populations, choosing terms of identity that respect your subject, being thoughtful about capitalization and styling, pronoun choice, and more. Chapter 4 introduces documenting sources, and it provides guidelines on avoiding plagiarism. It includes an overview of quoting and paraphrasing sources, which is a topic addressed in more detail in Chapter 6. In addition, we explain some cases when documentation is not needed. Chapter 5 covers how to construct a works cited list entry using the MLA template of core elements, facts common to most sources, like author, title, and publication date. For each element, the chapter includes sections called What It Is, Where to Find It, and How to Style It. Throughout Chapter 5, we provide hundreds of examples and visuals from a variety of source types to illustrate these concepts. For the author element, the What It Is section explains who to list there. The Where to Find It section indicates where the author can be found in various source types, such as a book, an online news article, or a journal in an online archive. And the How to Style It section explains how to list a work with one author and a work with multiple authors. For the title of source element, we show how to provide a description in place of a title for works such as letters, email, and social media posts. The 9th edition includes more details and examples about containers. Container is a work that contains another work. For example, a journal is a container for the articles published in it. To help readers understand when websites are and are not containers, the handbook includes a chart for easy reference. We've also explained when apps and databases should be considered containers, and we include additional examples for these complex but commonly used sources. A contributor is a person other than the author who contributed to a work. We explain the use of labels for describing a contributor's role and what to do when a contributor played more than one role or when a source has multiple contributors in the same role. For the publisher element, we give examples of publishers in various media, from books to films to websites. We provide new simplified guidance on how to locate the publisher of a book and visuals for determining the publisher and other media. The publication date element tells when a work was produced. Slides are a little bit off, just a sec. There we go. The term publication date can apply to a range of situations, and we've given examples of other types of dates a writer may need to record. What is listed in the location element depends on the work's format, and the handbook helps writers determine what to include there. We also explain when and how to include URLs and DOIs and where to find them in your source. To facilitate students' understanding of containers, we demonstrate how to use the template to create the 3 most common types of entries: works in one container, works in 2 containers, and works that are self-contained. The optional elements described in the previous handbook have been renamed supplemental elements. Supplemental elements are sometimes optional, but in other cases, they are necessary, hence the name change. The 9th edition clarifies the placement of supplemental elements and what information a writer might provide there. The remaining sections of Chapter 5 cover punctuation of works cited list entries, ordering the works cited list, including alphabetizing the list, creating cross-references in the works cited list, and creating annotated bibliographies. Chapter 6 covers in-text citations and quoting and paraphrasing sources. Following an explanation of the basic principles of in-text citation, we show what to include in specific instances. First, citing works by author or by co-authors, and then citing works identified by title. We've also added new guidance on how to shorten titles in parenthetical citations. We show how to cite page numbers and other divisions of works, and what to do when a source has no page numbers, such as an article from a website. Finally, we provide guidance on punctuation and parenthetical citations. And the next part of Chapter 6 discusses the mechanics of quoting and paraphrasing. It covers quotations of prose, dialogue, poetry, and drama. Block quotations are also explained and illustrated. We've added a section explaining the placement of parenthetical citations and how to cite more than one work in a parenthetical citation. Guidance on punctuating quotations is provided, and there's a new section on capitalization of quotations. The chapter concludes with suggestions for how to cite sources in projects taking forms other than print, such as slides, videos, and web projects. One of the most common misconceptions about MLA Style is that it does not allow writers to use notes. Chapter 7 clarifies our recommendations for how and when writers can use bibliographic and content notes alongside in-text citations with dozens of examples. Finally, the handbook includes 2 appendixes. The first covers abbreviations, and the second provides over 200 examples of works cited list entries for common and uncommon types of sources, including books, journals, works and databases, material published on websites, social media, interviews, performances and live events, government publication, legal works, and more. And that's an overview of the 9th edition of the MLA Handbook. I will now turn the presentation over to Christina to tell you about accessing MLA Handbook Plus.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to just wait a second so I can get the access, so I can move the slides along. Sorry, I went too far. Hi, my name is Christina Shea. I'm the Library Sales Manager at MLA, and I'm excited to show you some of the ways you and your campus users will be able to interact with MLA Handbook Plus. But first, we thought it would be helpful to provide some context for the development process. While we had started planning for a platform such as this prior to 2020, the move to remote instruction due to the pandemic accelerated that need and our plans. We heard with increasing urgency the need for a version of the handbook that could be discovered and accessed through the school's digital collections, and which provided a broader access opportunity for students. And while this was an accelerated need due to remote instruction, we know that there are other course-based and administrative directives which make MLA Handbook Plus a simple and effective solution. Speaking with librarians and instructors, we identified key elements which would ensure the site would meet those challenges now and have a strong foundation for additional functionality and content as the market and market needs evolve. These conversations and research informed a roadmap for a highly adaptable, interactive, and accessible site. What we heard is most important. First, unlimited access and availability. MLA Handbook Plus will be accessible to an unlimited number of users simultaneously. There are not limits to available seats. We heard from the library community that as the handbook is a core resource used in various disciplines and courses, it was important for the site's access model to solve the issues students have when trying to access limited print copies on reserve. Regardless of the location, students will be able to access the handbook, making it a resource for the entire campus and one that can be used when and how it suits a person's needs. With this flexibility and availability, students will be encouraged to use an authorized site for MLA format, and instructors can be confident that their students have access to a trusted source. We also wanted to ensure that for administrators, the site is easy to implement and manage. In partnering with and building our site with Silverchair, we're able to marry our content with their expertise. And we wanted to ensure the site was user-friendly to students so they'd adopt it as part of their process. As Angela mentioned, the site is WCAG 2.1 compliant and it meets accessibility standards for all students. And as it's optimized for mobile use, it becomes a portable resource that students can reference for any device. One last criteria is that as we build now, we allow for flexibility in what we're planning. And so as we begin to work with you, we want to ensure that we're staying in touch, engaged in conversations for feedback, as it will help inform and shape future plans. Administrator access includes functionality, which is critical to effective implementation, utilization, and management of a digital resource. From the main administrator dashboard, you can manage and keep track of your account information and subscription status, access a user guide for reference and assistance, and even customize your logo. You can manage your access options, such as updating your IP addresses, either as a single address or bulk upload. Sorry, it's a little slow. Okay, here we go. And you can easily run reports such as Counter to track utilization and for your reporting needs. You'll see a listing of available reports and option to run those as CSV or TSV files or generate a sushi link. You can also customize these by utilizing the dropdown to manage filters and fields. Users of the site can create their own accounts and personalize their experience with MLA Handbook. Once authentication parameters have been set by the site administrator, those users can register their own accounts. This authentication process allows students to access the site outside of their network. In addition to the benefit of off-network access, these registered accounts allow for users to capture their work in the site by saving their searches for future reference. They can manage the listing of these saved searches as their work evolves, keeping those which remain useful, renaming them, and deleting those they no longer need. As we will continue to add new content and support to the site, this feature will become even more valuable to students as they progress through their coursework. And so I saw a few questions come in about this, so this will be helpful information for everyone. So to get started in exploring MLA Handbook Plus further, we do have free 30-day trials available, which would allow you, your faculty, and students to access the site. When the site is live on Tuesday, September 14th, you'll be able to request a free trial by going to mlahandbookplus.org and get access. You can complete the trial access form and I'll get right back to you with details for your trial. In the interim or at any point, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me at gethbplus@mla.org and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And just to review the subscription pricing model, Since MLA Handbook Plus is designed to serve a wide range of members of your campus community, and most especially undergraduates, we've developed a pricing model based on conversations with librarians that reflect the undergraduate community that this resource will serve. We have identified 5 tiers based on full-time enrollment for colleges and universities in the United States. These tiers are based on U.S. Department of Education data, easily findable on College Scorecard. If you are part of a consortium, represent an institution outside of the United States, a district, high school, or other organization, please contact me directly so that we can review your needs and determine custom pricing accordingly. Once you are ready to discuss pricing and implementation, please let me know and we can start that conversation. Trial access and subscription purchases will be available starting on September 14th. And it's worth noting that any subscriptions purchased during the remainder of 2021 will extend access until 12/31/22, as we are eager to get your feedback for our ongoing site planning. Subscriptions purchased after January 1st, 22 will be annual and tied to purchase date, not calendar year. And, just like before we take a couple of questions, just, as Angela mentioned at the start of our presentation, we'll be adding more resources to MLA Handbook Plus, including book titles in our popular MLA guide series, companion videos with quizzes and assessment, and more. And we're really excited to launch this new resource now, but we're also really excited about what's to come and look forward to having continued conversations with you so we can understand how you would like to see this product grow. And now I think we have quite a robust list of questions, so we'll be able to get to those to answer some of those for you.
Excellent. And yes, we have quite a few questions in the hopper. So I'm just going to jump in on those so that hopefully we can get to as many as possible in our time. I would just, before we do, encourage folks, if you have additional questions, please feel free to drop them in there. And as I said, we'll do our best to get to a bunch of them. So we have a question here from Kim, who says, for the author element, MLA 9th doesn't provide instruction on what to do when an organization is both author and publisher of a work, which is mentioned in MLA 8th 25, that the organization's name is now given only once, usually as the publisher. Is that included in MLA Plus, or perhaps to expand that question, could you talk about some of the stuff maybe from older editions that is in addressed or is not addressed in the MLA Plus?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I'll take that because I happen to know it is there and it's in section 5.19. So to find it. It's, it's a larger book. It's definitely organized. It has an awesome index and which Erica can attest to. So we, kind of took what was in the 8th edition, expanded it, added much to the handbook. This is a chunky handbook, but that particular piece of information is still there. It was an additive process is what I would say. And we took steps to clarify the instructions from the 8th edition in terms of creating works cited list entries and in-text citations based on the feedback we got in the Style Center in the past 4 years. So it's there, as many other things are too. Anything you wanted to add to that, Erica?
No, just that, I don't think you'll find much that was removed from the 8th edition. It's probably there, but a lot was added.
Excellent, excellent. All right. And just to say it one more time, since we do have a couple of questions here in the hopper about that, we are recording today's session, and everybody who did sign up should receive a link to the recording. So hopefully that's helpful to folks, and you are welcome if you would like to pass it along to anybody that you would like, whether it's faculty or students or just to share it as you will. We have a question here from Brady who asks or sort of says, I'm confused. What are plus chapters and jump links? Could you maybe talk about that a little bit more or one more time?
Sure. I mean, jump links, they're just links, which is telling you that from different navigation panels, you can go places in the book and back. And we were trying to show the various ways that we did that. When I say plus chapters, I tried to explain, the handbook has 7 chapters and each section in that chapter is numbered we broke that up on the platform so that you're not scrolling through a whole chapter. And we broke it up in intuitive ways to allow, as I mentioned, efficient search and efficient scrolling. But that combined with the search functionality will allow you to find everything you need. We just wanted to make it as easy as possible to navigate the site. So we chunked up the chapters basically in ways that we think will make it easy to use for you. Erica, anything else you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, I could just say, for example, chapter 5, the longest chapter, has over 100 numbered sections in that chapter. You know, in Handbook Plus, you'll find them into, divided into like 5 or 10 at a time. If that makes sense.
Definitely, to make them a little more manageable, a little easier to navigate. Absolutely, great. And I think we did sort of mention the URL about getting a free trial again. So that was up on the screen for a bit. If we wanted to drop that into the chat box, we could go ahead and do that. So we have a question here from Rosalinda, who asks, how many example citations did you say that there currently were?
Oh, yes, I can answer that. I pulled it up. We counted them at some point. It's on a comparison chart on Amazon, which is where I got it. But buy the print book from us instead of them. 333 sample citations with an appendix of over 200 additional examples by publication format. So 533, I just did math. Yes.
Excellent. So lots of examples. Yeah.
And we'll add to them.
Excellent. And we have a question here from Karen, who says, your introductory video about MLA Handbook Plus indicates that authentication will be based on IP address with off-campus access available for designated periods of time or during remote or hybrid learning environments. Can you talk more about off-campus access and why is it limited this way, or why is it set up this way?
I'll let Christina add to what I'm saying, but I think users at a authorized as subscribing institution, once they authenticate through the IP, can use it off campus. They have to re-up that every 90 days. So that might have got phrased in a way that allowed misunderstanding. Anything you want to add to that, Christina?
No, I think they just have to initially get authenticated through the access parameters that were set, and then they have access to it. That includes, if they, the way that Silverchair explained it to me is that if they're on the network, that could include their mobile device, if whatever is included in the school's network. But to be able to utilize it off network, they would have to authenticate their account first through that site.
Excellent. And I will say this is a very, I don't know if it's contentious, but an interesting question. Ray asks, if the online version is updated at times other than the print edition, which version is official?
Yeah, I would consider both versions official. There's going to be some accretion of sections in the Plus version. When those accretions become substantial enough to warrant a new edition, we'll look at doing a new edition of the print. Or if we radically change anything that's going to cause confusion or instructional lack of clarity, we'll keep an eye on that, again, in conversation with instructors and librarians.
Excellent. And maybe this is a question for Christina. Val asks, will MLA consider sales to consortia?
Yes, we will. So if Val or any other consortium member can reach out to me directly at gethbplus@mla.org, and I can, start that conversation with them.
Excellent. Excellent. Looking through the many questions that have come through. So bear with me for just a moment. Apologies. So this is sort of a more general question from Erica about MLA style, sort of, as I said, sort of generally. Erica says, it sounds like the 9th edition of the manual has a lot of new examples and explanations, which is awesome. are there any notable changes in the formatting of the style itself? She notes there were quite a few from the 7th edition to the 8th edition. So are there any big sort of overarching sorts of themes that you'd like to point out?
I think, you know, what we want to say about the 9th edition is that it is really an expansion of a lot of the principles and clarification that we got in conversation with all sorts of users of the handbook, especially librarians. People asking for, we want to know more about containers. We want to know more about how to use contributors. So there are some guidelines that are changed slightly and tweaked for a better understanding. But I think the real contribution of the 9th edition is an expansion of the explanation and more examples that make it a really great teaching tool.
Excellent, excellent. And anybody else want to add anything there, or shall we move on?
Move on. We have so many questions.
We have lots of questions. Absolutely. So we have one here from Rochelle who asks, do users have to create a personal account in order to use it?
No, Christina, weigh in on this if you want. Creating a personal account is optional, right? It allows you to do certain things like learn when new books are loaded and save searches. Is creating the personal account, Christina, necessary for the off-campus access?
It depends on how the site is configured by each individual institution and how the students are accessing it. If they're on an IP address that's configured, or then they'd be able to access it without having an account created. But the benefit of creating an account is that they don't have to kind of be mindful of that. And also they can personalize their access with their saved searches and things like that. So that information doesn't come to us if there's questions about privacy. It's just, it's just their account is being registered through Silverchair for being able to be authenticated for that access.
Excellent. So we have a question here from Cynthia, and Cynthia says, are there plans to offer enhancements similar to APA academic writers, such as video tutorials or paper templates that users can use to write online in their accounts? I mean, I know you've talked a bit about some of the things that you're thinking about putting in, or that there are plans to add to. Is there, could you say a little more about that or expand on that a bit?
Sure, yeah. What we have in the hopper now that's going to come out, we hope soonish after launch, are the addition of guides and updates to them. We have videos in the works to support all things MLA style with self-assessments. The sky is sort of the limit with this new platform. So we look forward to kind of getting some feedback from all of you about what you want to see us develop on it. But there's a multimedia component that's possible there. And we're kind of looking forward to kind of branching out what is typically thought of as a handbook-like product. I don't know, Erica, Christina, if you want to weigh in with anything else. Okay.
And sort of to piggyback on that, just in case folks don't necessarily know, as they're using the product or as their students are, what is the best way to get a hold of you folks to let MLA know about things that they would like or that they would like to see? Is there a particular email address or a particular blog that gets a lot of responses or those sorts of things? What's the best way to contact you about those sorts of development ideas?
There's a general contact link at the bottom of the page, and people can give us feedback there. There's various forms that allow us to direct it to the content development team.
Okay, great. We have a question here from Brady who asks, will MLA Handbook Plus be discoverable with library discovery services? Meaning, will the resource be indexed and loaded like a database? For example, will students be able to search for punctuation and limit by e-resource type MLA Handbook?
We hope eventually. We're in conversations with, ProQuest, EBSCO, and OCLC. There are some limitations on this right now because it's one title, considered that way. But for the meantime, we're asking people to sort of add it to their catalogs to make it discoverable. But we're actively working on that and in conversations with all of the discovery service providers. So it's a coming. We're trying to get there. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. And we have several questions here for the contact emails and those sorts of things. Folks should be able to see that in the Q&A box there, if folks are looking for those. Just making sure that I haven't overlooked any questions before we keep moving on.
My dog is having a dream. Sorry if you hear it.
Excellent. So maybe this is this has been touched on, but maybe not directly addressed. Kendra's asking, is it possible to authenticate off campus via services like Easy Proxy with the IP authentication?
I would say get in touch with us to hammer out the details. I don't want to misspeak on the technical level. I don't know if Christina has a better handle on that.
No, I mean, I think some of the questions with the authentication services, we just have to finalize what will be available in the immediate and then what we'll have available in future iterations. So I think we just want to make sure that we're not misspeaking as to what will be available right now. So
yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. Would just note that Pamela says here, so excited about the platform, will be super helpful. So thanks for that. So Amanda asks here, you mentioned quizzes and assessment. Will we be able to link to embed those in learning management systems, or will students be able to report results through those to instructors? How do those sorts of things work?
Yeah, at launch, we aren't going to have the ability to report in the results to instructors, although we're looking at a possible way to configure that. So the minimum viable resource here would be sort of links and self-assessment, videos and self-assessments. But in talking with instructors and what they really want out of that, we could build that into something a little more robust. There's no direct integration with learning management systems at the moment. I think instructors can link to it in their syllabus and that sort of thing. We hope that they embed it in their course platforms. But that's something we'll continue to think about in conversation with all of you.
Excellent, excellent. So this also sort of relates to the technical side of things and may or may not be answerable. So we have Richard asks, are deep permalinks available for individual entries, and are they configured to survive proxying?
I'd have to get back on that.
Yeah, I suspected that may be the case. Excellent. All
Mark,
right.
may I
Please, go ahead.
question that I see we haven't addressed yet?
Yeah.
Someone says that they're requiring their students to buy the MLA Handbook, where they also have to pay to access the online version. I just want to mention that one of the benefits of this new resource is that libraries and institutions would purchase on behalf of the student. So, in fact, if your institution subscribes to this, this makes MLA Handbook accessible to your entire campus community without having to make an individual purchase. So I think that's an important point to convey.
Definitely, that it's institution wide. And so, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh.
There's another question. If I wanted to, I think
Yep.
we missed a couple.
Yep.
Will MLA provide instruction or guides for students on how to use MLA Handbook Plus? It would be great to have them, this person says, so they can plug and play. We'd love to develop those with you over the next couple of months as you get in there and use it. I think this is exactly the kind of thing we can build out pretty quickly and swiftly on the platform, or user guides and different kind of instructional resources that will really help make it, that married with the videos that are sort of like will teach students how to use the style so they can go and use this new resource as a reference product. I think are exactly kind of things we want to kind of build out pretty quickly as we get user feedback on the site.
Excellent, excellent. So yeah, looking through again, lots more questions coming through. Lynn has asked, does this work as a citation manager?
Yeah, I wanted to answer that one because this is not a citation manager. And I think one of the important things that we're trying to do with the handbook is teach students judgment, decision-making skills that they need in order to reference sources, think about entering conversations publicly with one another and writers and with their teachers. So we give them the building blocks to create the citations, but we don't create them for them. But we do provide examples so they can kind of map their knowledge onto kind of real world examples. So we see this as a pedagogical guide and a decision-making and judgment teaching resource.
Please go ahead.
Oh, someone asked if the digital literacy guide and undergraduate research and literature guide would be added to the platform without an additional cost. There would be no additional cost for those. And when the updates come in, we would add those too. There's going to be a core collection of texts around the handbook that will, always be part of the product. So that's an important point. These are going to be added titles.
Excellent. And I would just mention that it looks like my Q&A box has sort of been overloaded. So
Okay.
if you're seeing questions, I'm not seeing any more questions.
Okay.
So if there are ones you want to jump in on, please feel free to.
Someone asked if when future editions are released, will institutions have to purchase new digital access to newer editions? This is going to be an annual subscription product. So it will be here, we hope, every year for time immemorial. And as long as you renew your annual subscription, it's going to be here for you. And this will be the updated, most current version of all things MLA Style. Okay. All right. Someone else asked about the relationship between the MLA Style Center and the MLA Handbook Plus. We see the MLA Style Center as a companion. We're not strictly updating it to conform with the 9th, but we did do a kind of sweep for the major big ticket items. So as we continue to see what people are accessing on the Style Center, if there's a useful update for us to make, or just even take off that this supports the 8th that's relevant to 9th, we'll continue to do that.
We also have a tag for 8th edition and 9th edition on posts if you.
Yeah, there's lots there to support the 9th edition is what I would say. I guess there's one question I didn't identify that we might want to answer. People are asking about individual subscriptions. At this time, this is an institutional subscription. We don't have an immediate plan to make this available individually. That's not off the table for a potential future way to go. But at launch right now, this product is for organizations to purchase it on behalf of their, authenticated users, authorized users. Those are all the questions I see in my queue as identified that we wanted to answer. I don't know if you have more coming in. Okay. Christina or Erica, is anything you feel like you wanted to clarify about some of the questions and answers that came in, or?
No, I mean, I think, obviously we're seeing a lot of questions to confirm the authentication process. And as we mentioned, that's something that we are finalizing ourselves. So You have, I think my contact information has been shared a few times. We can include it in the chat out to everyone. So we can follow up with you with specific questions on that. We're also going to have a list of these questions that is sent to us from Choice, so we can follow up with you directly on those as well. So
Yeah. And one question did come in that I think we should answer. Someone asked if we know when the 9th edition will be included in EBSCO databases in the Citation Manager. This is a separate product from EBSCO. So when you're purchasing it, you go through the MLA, not EBSCO. That's an important thing to mention. And that's an EBSCO platform feature that they bake in. So this is a separate resource. And it doesn't really feed into each other, is what I would say. Just clarification on that front.
Excellent. So we'll just take a minute here then. It looks like we're winding down. All right. And before we sign out, I just take a second here to say thank you so much, Angela and Erica and Christina. Lots of information here, lots and lots of questions coming through. And as mentioned, we'll have those and be able to share them with you so that if there are things that need to be followed up on, we can do that. And I'll just take then a minute to remind folks that, as I've said a couple of times, we did record our program today. So please be on the lookout for an email tomorrow sometime with a link to that recording. And as we're getting ready to sign out here, if folks have just a minute or two after our presentation today to fill out just a brief survey, we would really appreciate that. Your responses help us to improve the presentations. And I would say thank you, of course, to all of you out there joining us today. We thank you for your time, and we look forward, hopefully, to seeing you on another program in the near future. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.